El Masri for the line. Is he held up? Gets it over the line. It's a try. Hazem El Masri scores his 100th try.
Hazem El Masri, thanks for joining us ahead of Multicultural Round. Can you tell us how your family first came to Australia?
It was very tough times when we were 11. I know 5 siblings. Mum and dad. Dad is a carpenter by trade, so he was doing his best to put food on the table. But because a lot of the civil war and some of the war that kept happening on and off, so we weren't able to sort of, go as frequent to schools. Jobs were very limited at the time. For us, we had 2 of our uncles and auntie that were living in Australia, and we ended up arriving on a refugee visa at the time. So some again tough times because we had to go and seek help from Smith family and the Salvation Army and all that. So and to their credit, they'll give us food vouchers and whatever it is. So a lot of these things, were very difficult at the times, and you question why you're here or whatever it is. But the safety aspect of it was probably the major one. Not seeing any rockets or hearing them. I still, as a kid, when there's lightning and thunder, and now it still takes me back to hearing the whistle of a rocket that you don't know where it was going to land. So yeah.
So there were 7 of you living in a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, and my sister was born 2 years later, so it was actually 6 of us. That the kids, we had bunk beds in 1 bedroom, so it brought us a lot. Brought us together a lot more. But and again, it was tough times. Kids bickering and whatever it is. But look, we managed. That's the beauty about it, is that you look back now and you go. You question how did we do it, but as I said, when there's a will, we were able to manage.
So how did you get involved in rugby league?
We resided at Belmore, not far from Belmore Boys High School, down the road from where the school, obviously out with the high school I went to. We arrived in 1988, the year actually the Bulldogs won the grand final, and just seeing how the love, everybody was just talking about rugby league and talking about the Bulldogs, and how the whole community and the culture just got behind this team. I thought, I was a soccer player playing in Lebanon, so when I arrived here, I continued to play soccer. But at a local barbecue, had my cousins and my uncle and all that, and they go, look, do you want to play? And I'm like, yeah, of course I want to play. What are we playing here? And then they got this egg-looking ball, and I'm like, oh, I thought we were going to play soccer. He goes, no, this is the game we play here. And I was like, okay. And I still remember my little cousin Sama, he had his Bulldogs gear on, and I said, okay, so what do you got to do? They go, oh, it's very simple. See that line over here? I go, yeah. They go, you got to run and put the ball down, and then you got to stop them from doing the same thing on this line. I'm like, how good is this game? You know what I mean? So, they just keep feeding me the ball, and I kept running and weaving through people and just putting it down and going, that's it, that's the game, And from that day, I just fell in love with it.
How did the rugby league community embrace you when you first started playing?
Oh yeah, when I started playing, I was a late bloomer as well, so I played soccer to the age of 17. I still played touch footy for school, and any time I got a chance to play rugby league, I did. So I'd ride my bike to soccer training, and I'll go there an hour earlier and put my bike there, and I'd start playing about an hour, and then I'd finish playing touch footy and all that, and I'd go to my soccer training, train, and then jump on my bike and ride back home, So these are like great memories that for me I look back onto, and then it kind of sort of in a way prepared me for the next phase, which I wasn't expecting. I decided to play for school in my year 12, and I think there's a little bit of a couple of Canterbury selectors at the time. Guys like Gary Hughes, Billy Johnston went down a couple of times, and they sort of spotted me, and Paul Ticehurst at the time as well, and I didn't know. I was just there to have fun and play. I actually didn't worry about the next stage. All it was for me is that in the moment, enjoy the moment, play, see what's in front of me, and just do these things, And I was able to stand out. And next thing is I received a phone call at home. There were mobiles at the time in the 90s, or mid-90s, sorry. And Paul Tice was on the phone. He said, mate, why don't you try out for the try-in squad for the Bulldogs, the flex side or something? I said, I didn't know about it. He said, look, come down and be part of the squad. So, and when I did, there was about 40 or 50 players from I was like, this is a big squad. How am I going to make it, And things went on from there. So I had a couple of tryouts, and
So can you just tell us a story about how you progressed through the grades at the Bulldogs?
So 95, I started with them. I meant to be in flag, had tryouts, and then they introduced the under 21. So I went straight to 21, started as a fullback. I had a great coach, which I'll give a lot of credit to, Stan Cutler. He believed in me more than I believed myself. I was just raw, and I was willing to listen and learn. And that's one thing he loved about me. You know what I mean? He always took me under his wing and just taught me so much as an ex-fullback he was, and just said, look, these are some of the things you need to do. These are the fundamentals. Look, I just enjoyed it. I just loved what I was doing. I didn't worry about the money. I didn't worry about anything. After 4 or 5 games, I actually got offered a $1,000 contract for the year and $5,000 for the year after, which was the Super League year. So I went from flag, and towards the end of that year, actually, in 1995, when obviously the boys had a good run, I was able to start in reserve grade, you know. So I got about 3 or 4 games of reserve grade as a starting fullback. So I was meant to play flag. I didn't. Went straight to under 21s. Got player of the year for 21s, and I was able to finish here on about 3 or 4 starting fullback for reserve grade. So it was a big jump in 1 year. And then come 96. 3 days before the game against the Tigers at Parramatta Stadium, Matthew Ryan gets injured. So all of a sudden, I happened to be at the club at the time working. So yeah, I had one of the trainers, Gary Carden, come up and he goes, Chris Anderson wants you at the back. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, playing first grade this week. Put your boots on and go to the back. And I just froze for a second. He goes, come on, hurry up. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know. So grabbed my boots, went to the back, you know, for one of the first guys, Rod Silva, you know, congratulations, as well done. You know, Polamatta, Terry Lamb, all that. I'm like, is this a joke or is this a dream or what's happening here? So it was a quick rise to the top, 95, and then all of a sudden 96, I'm playing first grade for the Dogs. I ended up playing about 15 first grade games that time, and I was lucky enough that Chris Anderson is a winger too. He took me under his wing and I played on the wing, so I've never played wing beforehand, and he just said, look, this is some of the things you got to do, play up in defence, just stick to 1, 2 and 3 and 4. It's just simplified the game for me, and I think once you get a taste of it, you just never wanted to let go, and it just made me hungrier, made me want to sort of train harder and to be able to sort of go to that point.
The youngster, he'll score! El Masri!
As someone of a multicultural background, how were you accepted into the NRL?
You can't deny and say there wasn't any challenges. There's always going to be challenges, and then even from your own, as I said, community, some people just go, oh, why you hear it, why did he make it? I don't think he's good enough to be playing in that in that side or whatever, and there's always going to be someone questioning something. But for me, look, I just took everything as a challenge and I just worked hard at it, and I tried to learn as much as I can because my experience was limited, and I took everything on board. And I had such a great year actually in '97 when we had the Super League year. I was training now full time. I have a full pre-season under my belt. Get to know the guys a bit better, and I formed a really great combination with Matthew Ryan that time. And once that happened, schools took notice of it. They wanted you to come and do the appearances, and the community was going crazy. And you go to the local mosque to pray, and you see the kids, and I was like, oh, this is all new to me, and you start to know what it's all about and how influential you could be towards these young kids and how you can play a role in their life.
So you, I suppose, became an accidental role model.
Yeah.
But you educated so many people through basically following your career. At the moment, there's been a bit of interest in the fact that Payne Haas is observing Ramadan during the Ramadan period. Like, you obviously went through that. What was that like?
Yeah, look, I kept it quiet obviously at the beginning, so I was just trying to tough it out. And when I did the trials for the flex side, I was actually fasting too, and it was the end of summer. and it kept going backwards, you know what I mean? So every year it'd go back 2 weeks because of the lunar year. So again, talk about tough times and being thrown in the deep end straight away. So I just try to keep it quiet and just tough it out as much as I can, and until I turned full time. And obviously having trainers like Billy Johnston, and I love Billy, but there's certain things. Sometimes he had the Darwin room, and he had the rowing for this one, and he had rowing the Nile, and he had the sprinting sessions and that. We didn't eat till almost 9 o'clock, so it was extremely tough times, to be able to be dehydrated, training twice a day, and then wait for the next 8 to 10 hours. You finish sometimes at 12 o'clock, 2 sessions. You do one early in the morning at 7, which burns you out, and then the next one, say for example 11 or 12 or whatever it is. So I had another at least 7 to 8 hours to go. It was so tough back then, and until I built some courage and I went to Billy and I said, Billy, this is a situation. I do fasting. It's very hard. 30 days straight, and we used to get 1 day off a week that time, And he said to me, look, observing how you actually go about your training, I have full trust in you. I will write you the sessions, so the weight sessions that you can do sometimes at night. But the ball works and the sprint sessions and all the physical ones, you have to do with the team. I said, look, that's all I'm asking for. At least I get to do that, and I went about it this way, So I've had my mate would open up the gym for me, and I'd go do the sessions at night after. So I have a small amount of food. I'd go do my session and come back, eat again, and I had a lot of great network of friends and family that I was able to sort of bounce ideas off, and they were always willing to help, which helped my cause in making it.
And you certainly did make it. You had a great career. You broke the record for the leading point scorer at the time. You scored an incredible amount of tries. People remember you now as a goal kicker, but you were much more than that.
I took over goal kicking in 2001. So Darryl retired in 2000. I had to go to the World. I had to go to the World Cup with the Lebanon side. Come back. I got married that year towards the end of it, and then all of a sudden I had practically 5 or 6 weeks, whatever, to get myself start goal kicking, so I can be able to sort of kick in. And it was. It wasn't just me, it was Braith at the time and Sherwin. We all sort of had a bit of a dab in goal kicking, and they decided to go with me, and I just put in a lot of hard work. I was, that first year, because I didn't have the foundation and I just kind of sort of a little bit lost in finding my comfortable rhythm. It took me probably about 1.5 to 2 years, so that 2001 and 2002 was mainly learning. And learning about myself and which is the most comfortable, because being a soccer player beforehand, I used to curve the ball a lot more and all that, so I had to just try to straighten it up. I had to sort of work on where to stand, how to stand, find just that comfortable position. And when I did that, I could just stand there, close my eyes and know where the ball's going to go at times. Obviously, if there was no wind, the rain and all these factors that go into any injuries. So there was a lot of work got put in. I'd probably go out there every single day almost, especially taking an over goal kicking from someone like Darryl Hallig, and they obviously call the super boot, and the expectation from people, and you miss a couple and they start to oh but mate, and you're like, okay, but I scored 2 tries, for example. I missed 2 goals, but I scored 2. At least I made up for it. That doesn't work, They constantly reminded you, and living around the area, it's like in a bubble. It was extremely tough.
The goal in Newcastle after the bell, what was it feeling like to win the game in that way?
That Newcastle kick was probably the pinnacle kick of my career, because it happened early. And again, I was mentioned how many times I'd go out a week to be able to do my kicking and all that. I know Joey, I've heard a few times, said he was always going to kick it, but that wasn't the case at the time, because it was just so early in my career, my kicking career. And
El Masri, trailing by 1 to win it. He's got it away. It has got there. He has kicked it.
It just rejuvenated me. Everything you work hard for that moment, and when you nail one like that, this is, as a goal kicker, this is all you want. It just made me more hungrier, and it made me look. I wanted more of them kicks. You know what I mean? So this is what I'm about. I'm built to take these pressure ones, and I wanted them. Some people hide away and find the hole they can hide in, but I wanted these moments, and that's why I worked so hard to be able, when I got behind that ball, I was ready for that moment. And just 2 sessions of training a day with the Bulldogs and then go and doing a 3rd session a day. So it was tough. It was actually hindering me playing sometimes, because you get to the game and you're actually just very tight everywhere, you know, because I'd even sometimes if we were playing that night, I'd go in the morning and kick, and I'd go, look, I only have 20 kicks. Next thing is you miss a couple, it ends up 30, 40, 50, and you're like, oh man, I should have stopped ages ago. But that particular kick itself just, you know, inspired me to keep going, and honestly, it was probably the pinnacle kick in my career, you know.
The flags are in the air. They have won it 22-21. Oh, grand final celebrations. And Hazem El Masri wins the game for Canterbury.
A few years later, you won a premiership. Can you talk about that experience?
In 2002, we gave it a real crack. We won 17 straight games, and that game in particular against the Knights you're talking about, that was, I think, our 15th or 16th game, so it was a big deal for us as well. And then, unfortunately, salary cap dramas that happened, and we lost 37 points. Then, you know, the 03 came along. We were 1 game away, lost in the semi-finals to the Roosters, and we should have probably done better that year. We didn't. And then come 2004, probably the toughest times being at the Bulldogs was probably that year. We finished second at the time behind the Roosters, and the Roosters lost the grand final the year beforehand and won it the year beforehand. So that was their 3rd straight grand final, and for us it was obviously like a big deal. We all wanted to win one. For me personally, it was I think I've been at the Bulldogs that time almost 10 years, you know. So and you get close, and then it's not close enough. Like I got close in 98, I got demoted that time before the boys made the grand final, and then we got close in 99, we lost to Melbourne that time, and I'm thinking, is it ever going to happen, you know what I mean? And then you know 2001, 2002, then it come through 2003 and 2001, we're like, oh come on, dude. You know, and then finally enough, we were able to sort of crack it and win that game.
Then it's gone out to Crocker. Crocker loses the ball. It's picked up by Utai. That is the grand final. That is the grand final.
What about
the Dogs have won it.
That Bulldogs team was ahead of its time, very multicultural.
You know what, it's funny enough, we never looked at it that way, you know, and I think in sports that's what the beauty about it is, that it just unifies people. I know I stood out because obviously around the area, majority of our supporters were, you know, Lebanese, but again, we've never sort of looked at it that way. We were just one unit, all wanted to play footy and have fun and play for one another, and that's why I think that team in particular, we were very close to be able to come away with a grand final win. I mean, every time we sort of catch up, we're a very tight unit to this day, you know, it's like we never left.
And look, when you reflect back, I suppose, on the game throughout your career and now, so the NRL has introduced Multicultural Round. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, look, it's obviously, it's a great concept, but I have to actually give credit to the time the Bulldogs did it with Lynn Anderson and all that in the 90s. I think 92, 93 or something like that. And I remember I was one of the kids up on the hill. I think we played 2 years, if my memory serves me right, and full stadium, mate, you know what I mean? And you see the flags, you see everybody just bringing their own different culture. Again, I went to Belmore Boys High School. Multicultural Day was one of my favourites, you know what I mean? You saw the Chinese with their dress code and their dragon dancing away, and you saw the Vietnamese doing the same thing. You saw the Lebanese with their drums, and although you saw the Italians, you know what I mean, and the Greeks. So we had a really diverse, multicultural, you know, people everywhere there. So the islanders, the Africans with their vibrant colours and that. So it's wonderful to see everybody bringing something to the table, you know, and it's always been a great day to look up to, especially all these players now from different backgrounds get to express themselves.
And you played for Lebanon as well as for Australia. How important is the World Cup for sides like Lebanon, and how proud are you to watch the country competing on the world stage?
Look, I still remember till now, I think it would have been 96 or something, and then there was a talk about Lebanon side for the sevens or something like that, and it was laughable because some people would start laughing, going, "Nah, Lebanon, what players are going to get? Where from? And there's not enough, or whatever it is." And we had a really good crack, and it was actually wonderful. And I think for the first time, people got to see what the Lebanese supporters are capable of, because I still remember Bay 35 at the old SFS 35, 36 or 37, they were actually just packed you know, and you had the flags and the drums, and there was other games as well, you know what I mean? And it just started from there, and all of a sudden, you know what, let's go to Lebanon, play in Lebanon, you know what I mean? And we're like, okay, why not, you know? So I think for the first time in Lebanon's history, we were the first to qualify for a major competition. Then play a one-off game against France, and that was so good actually, because a lot of these Lebanon players are born here. All I know is Australia and all that. So to go back and to find, you know, where their parents are from, small villages, and all these people got introduced to the game then, and they're like, ooh, I remember that, looking up in grandstand, and one of my uncles, you know what I mean, I saw his face going like that when there was when we were actually playing, and the impact of the game, and he's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. After he goes, mate, how do you guys play that game? You know, but they loved it.
Can you tell us about your Origin experience? You had a long wait to get selected, but when you did, you really made it count.
Again, one of the, you know, from an individual perspective, it's all I wanted to do. You know, I played for Australia, which is something major. You know, these are some of the boxes that you want to be able to tick. I was lucky enough to play for Australia in 2002, and I thought, look, I'm a chance of playing Origin here. And I was knocking on the door. I made the city squad something like 6 years or something in a row, and you know, I was keep breaking records and playing well. Won a Premiership for the Bulldogs, and I just couldn't crack it into the Origin side, you know. And you get to a stage where you sort of start doubting yourself, and am I good enough, or do I belong in that arena? You know, is it for me? And the Origin, people just spoke about how tough that arena is, and it's just like gladiators going at it, and I just wanted to be part of it. And it took a long time, and until, as I said, I got selected, and I think I got selected by default as well, because I think Jamie Lyon that time was meant to be in the squad, pulled out 3 or 4 days beforehand, and they called me in. And for me, I remember that time when I got the phone call, it was a private number, and I thought, no, I don't answer it. And then, you know, for some reason, I just picked it up. I was like, okay, no problem. I'll see you at Coogee. Hung up the phone. I sat in my car, and I think I was there for about 5 or 6 minutes, like just trying to comprehend what just happened and trying to eliminate these doubts. I was 31 at the time, so I was probably one of the oldest players to make their debut, and thinking, am I ready for this now? Is this happening, or what's going on, you know? So I had Graham Murray, late Graham Murray was there, and I had him for City side a few times, so he was lovely to deal with. Had Kevin Moore as a assistant coach, which obviously we were close at the Bulldogs. Had Tony Ayub as a physio at that time, so I kind of felt a little bit familiar with everybody that was there. And, you know, to play at Lang Park, you know, in front of the Queensland crowd, and to be able to sort of come away with the win and actually have a good game. All I was trying to concentrate was about team effort, and of course, you know, myself. I didn't want to let anybody down. I wanted to show everybody that, look, I do belong in this arena, although it took a little bit longer, but that's what I'm capable of, you know. And I think at the time, when I looked across, I was marking GI, and I'm like, oh, great, you know what I'm saying? Somehow he got injured, and then I had Bowen. I was like, oh, you remember? You know what I mean? So, but look, the game, it went so quick. I'll be honest with you, it was, you know, I still remember that time, and it kind of sort of went so quickly, you know what I mean? But it was such a buzz for me and for my family and everyone. I flew my brothers and my wife and everyone to Queensland that time. And look, credit to all the Queenslanders too. A lot of them made me feel, a lot of welcome, and made my family welcome. Every time I did something good, I'd turn around and I'd give thumbs up to my family, you know what I mean? And it was very welcoming, and I had such a buzz, you know, for that one particular game.
El Masri! Hazem El Masri puts it over the line. I'm sure El Masri's the try scorer.
He is, right. What a wonderful night for Hazem El Masri.